Okay, I'll take you to this one first.
Okay.
Passover premise, more detail was given at, at the development of the tabernacle, and then the reality plays out in the same way. The blood is shed, the blood is collected, and the blood is applied by the priest. This is what is really taking place at Calvary, unbeknownst to probably most Christians. Horizontal layout, dealing with the symbolism, right?
Oh, I
This is
see what you're
God's.
saying now.
This is
Yeah.
God's way. Okay, when you go vertical, then now you have the application of the blood coming down here. You have the same. You have the same result, but in reality, Christ, after he's yielded his life as the priest, is making the application. It's
That's
absolutely
really cool.
stunning.
That is really cool.
Now, let me take you here.
Huh.
You have Jerusalem, right? This is a slide that I use in the Exodus route, coming across from Succoth to the beach in the Gulf of Aqaba. But notice you have. Is there an arrow displaying for you?
Hmm.
Okay, from Jerusalem down to Mount Sinai.
Yep. Says bloodshed, arrow all the way down to Mount Sinai, parentheses law. Yep.
Yeah, so you've got it. Is that crazy? God even put it on
That
the
is
map.
amazing.
God put it on the map, my friend. It's astounding.
That is absolutely amazing. I've never seen that before.
Okay, so now the question. We know that there was more going on below Calvary than we see above. What we see above Calvary is the human offering, the human sacrifice, right? Paul in Ephesians 5, verse 1 and 2, well, verse 2 actually, be therefore followers of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also had loved us, and had given himself for us two things, an offering and a sacrifice to God.
Oh, that's
See, there
interesting.
were two things going on here, right? And that's what it was, it was the human and the divine that were being offered for a sweet smelling savor. Christianity focuses on the human offering. Now watch this. This is what's incredible. The Jews had received the Ten Commandments from God at Mount Sinai,
Mm-hmm.
the law written with his own finger, okay, showing the permanence, the absolute eternal aspect of the law. It's the very foundation of his throne, okay. And so they're walking around with that all the time, right? Even after when they went back into the wilderness after the event with the spies that they sent out. So they're walking around with this thing the whole time. And what God wants to illustrate to them as well as to us is that it is those two components that are demonstrated in the sanctuary. I'm going to go back here and go back here for a moment, and let's come up down further. That's the layout of the wilderness tabernacle. But I'm going to find another shot of that. But I've got all kinds of slides of the layouts of the different things. Thought I had. Well, let me just use this one right here. Is that up on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. You see how what you basically have in the wilderness tabernacle, you have two 50 cubit squares side by side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have a two becoming one kind of illustration here.
Mm-hmm.
And on the day of at one meant, the blood is taken into the most holy. If you can see how there's a cross section
Mm-hmm.
in each of those sections there. The focal point in the outer court was the altar of sacrifice, where the blood was shed. The focal point in the inner courtyard was right through the Ark of the Covenant, where the law was, the mercy seat in the law. So you had this coming together of the blood and the law. So this marriage, really what was happening on the Day of Atonement was a marriage. That's what this is. In order to accomplish an atonement, you need two things coming together. Marriage is an illustration of the atonement.
I, I like it. I like that. Atonement.
It's,
Yep.
it's two becoming one. Okay. And so this is really what was taking place at Calvary, even though a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand because they just focus on the human sacrifice. Because
Hmm.
again, it's the substitutionary role that's focused on. Jesus, when he came, he said, "Think not that I've come to destroy the law and the prophets," in Matthew chapter 5. "I've not come to destroy, but to fulfill, to satisfy, to atone." And so he plays the substitutionary role in his humanness, but he must use his divinity. He must use something equal to that which was broken. And he uses his omnipresence and eternal presence to cover the transgression and the brokenness of an eternal law. There is no, as we would say, there is no putting the yolk back in the egg once it's
Mm-hmm.
broken.
Yep.
Okay. And so, in order for the Son of God, in order for heaven to save us, to redeem us, the Son of God must use his human nature and his divine nature together in a marriage. And that marriage then is sealed with his own blood. The record is sealed of that marriage with his own blood beneath Golgotha. That is the only reason, that is the only legal reason why the Father, the Son, and the Spirit can be involved in a resurrection. Again, the importance of that is highlighted even back when the children of Israel went into Canaan, went into their Canaan. Humanity is moving to the heavenly Canaan, to the heavenly promised land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But to illustrate this concept of the coming together of both components, God works it out so that when they go into the promised land, it's not Moses. Moses was so identified with the law because he brought it down from Sinai. God wanted to make sure that people didn't get the impression that it was the law and the keeping of the law that took a person into Canaan. So Moses is actually prevented from going into Canaan. He can see it,
Yeah.
right? But he's prevented from going in there personally. And who takes his place? Yeshua. Joshua takes his place. And so you have the actual law written with his hand, and you have a symbol of Yeshua in Joshua leading them into the promised land, the law and the blood, leading them into the promised land. Now, of course, it worked out okay for Moses because he was later resurrected and taken to heaven. But as an example of those that would be redeemed, the first fruits that would be redeemed and resurrected and taken to heaven. So absolutely stunning what God has done in bringing together the law, bringing together those two things. God establishes all that he needs to in order, he establishes his record on the mercy seat to seal the human and divine offering. It's astounding. When you look in Hebrews, for example, in Hebrews, the 9th chapter, it's interesting how, again, Paul,
Hebrews.
Hebrews chapter 9. Okay, so verse 11 there, it says, but Christ being come and high priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building. So
Mm.
the symbolic is only pointing to the real, to the true. Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood, he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctify to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God? Okay, some people mistakenly believe that the application of the blood occurred in heaven.
Mm.
In other words, when Jesus was resurrected, he went to heaven and and applied the blood there. But the application of of course, he's still, well, he's resurrected and he goes there and they think that there's, I guess, the marriage took place in heaven. But there's no way that you can get the cart before the horse. There's no way that you can legally set Messiah free from death unless the brokenness of the law is covered. And so that must occur. That must occur legally before there's any resurrection. And when Paul says here, neither by the blood of goats or calves, but by his own blood, he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained, that is a past tense indicative, having obtained eternal redemption for us. In other words, the marriage was already accomplished when he is resurrected and goes to heaven.
Mm.
It's already been done. And so what he has done, and of course, when you read further, verse 14, how much more shall the blood of Christ, through who?
Eternal
Through the
Spirit.
eternal Spirit, offered himself without spot to God. Remember what John said? The Spirit and the water and the blood went into the earth. The Spirit was the witness of truth. The Spirit witnessed it, took the word to the Father, because remember, Christ is still in the tomb. He's
Yeah.
still in the tomb. He's captive there. The Spirit presents the offering, the sealing of his two offerings. The human offering has been made. The divine offering sacrifice has been made. The marriage has been accomplished. And now, because of that, the Spirit gives the word to the Father that now it's legally okay to resurrect your son. That is the only way, Brandon, that it can play out. What
Yeah.
this does is this confirms the location. God calls his earthly throne back into play, having intentionally put it there, knowing 600 years in the future that his son's own blood would seal both of those offerings. Now, listen here. This is unbelievable. Not only is a human offering made to play the substitutionary role for us to become a part of the process, but a divine offering is made to satisfy, to atone for the brokenness of God's law. Now, wait a minute. We can't quite get our heads around that, because what that means is that for eternity, the Son of God has forfeited part of what makes him God. He has used his omnipresence, which is equal to God because it's eternal, to cover the brokenness of God's law for eternity.
Mm.
And this is why when you look at Philippians 3:21, it says that when Messiah was resurrected, he was resurrected in a glorified body. And when he appeared to the disciples, now notice this, when he appears to the disciples, Thomas, who wasn't there just after the resurrection, but is there, Jesus leaves for 7 days and comes back on the eighth day, and Thomas is there on that particular occasion. Thomas doesn't believe that Messiah has been resurrected. But when he gets back there, what does Jesus say to him?
Touch
Look,
my wounds. Yeah.
look at the handprints. Look at the footprints. Look at the nail prints in my hands and feet. Right? Now, Jesus knows that they're there because he was alive when they happened. But then he tells him, look at my side. Look at my side. Well, wait a minute. How does he even know that happened? He was dead when that happened. But he draws attention to his side because that was the blood that came out and sealed the marriage of his two offerings. You see, every little thing that we read in Scripture plays a supporting role in establishing the location of the ark.
Mm.
It must be below, it must receive the application of the blood. Now, look, I understand and I get it why the theologians in the past, they didn't know where the
Oh.
ark was located. They don't realize where the ark could be. They know that there's an original in heaven.
Hmm.
And so they just assume that that's where the application of the blood had to take place. This is why God leads Ron. Psalm 25:14. The secret of the Lord is with them that fear him, and he will show them his covenant.
Hmm.
Okay. So God knew that Ron respected him,
Yeah.
right? Here's a sinful human being, but he had grown in his understanding of who God was to fear and respect him thoroughly and to be willing to do and to go, just like Joshua was, and just like other of the patriarchs were willing to go and to do and to be what God wanted them to be. And God says, this secret that's been hidden since the very beginning, if you respect and fear me, I will show you my covenant. Mine eyes are ever toward the Lord. This was Ron's testimony. His eyes were ever toward the Lord, for he shall pluck my feet out of the net. And Ron has received so much criticism. He had to have that divine strength to be able to be just plucked out of any of those circumstances. He was arrested. He was imprisoned. God preserved him and God plucked him out of those things
Yeah.
to carry him to the place where he would fulfill. He fulfilled the role that God asked him to play. And so praise God for that. When I think about all that he did, I just am so excited and just thrilled. And it allowed us to step back. It allowed us to step back, Brandon, and look at everything collectively and understand there was more going on here than just finding stuff, than just proving archaeological or biblical sites. There was much more going on here. And it was about taking the everlasting gospel to the world. And the everlasting part is where the Ark of the Covenant comes in. The sacrifice was everlasting. The Son of Man sits at the right hand of the Father, and he will forever be locked, if you will, in that glorified body. We will be able to see the handprints in his hands and his feet.
Yeah.
For the Son of God to be willing to forfeit part of what made him God. Well, wait a minute. That's kind of off the chart. That is way out there. That's an eternal offering. And if you have an eternal offering, that means you must have an eternal priesthood. And this is why when we go to Hebrews and we learn about the priesthood of Melchizedek, people wonder, how does that fit into the equation? It fits into the equation because there's an eternal offering being made. So Jesus is high priest when he goes to Calvary. And he also, once he goes to heaven, that becomes the priesthood of Melchizedek. It's an eternal priesthood. And you wonder why would there need to be an eternal priesthood? It's because there's an eternal offering in play for all eternity. That is so difficult for us to wrap our heads around that. I think that's in Hebrews chapter 7 is one of the references there as you read through chapter 7
Chapter 7.
of Hebrews.
Okay.
For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. And you go through and you read about
What
this.
verse is that?
Well, that's just picking it up in verse 1.
Oh, okay.
But verse 17 says, for he testified, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So when you read through that whole chapter, he repeats that different places over and over again in that chapter. By so much Jesus made, and here it is, verse 22. By so much, after verse 21, for those priests were made without an oath, but this with an oath by him that said unto him, the Lord swear and will not repent, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. By so much Jesus made a surety of a better testament or a better
Mm.
covenant. So what Christ's human sacrifice dealt with was the substitutionary role. What his divine offering dealt with was the surety. It was the covering of the brokenness of God's law, and that will stand. And this is why I believe the when the holy city comes down, where New Jerusalem is. In fact, Mount Moriah is also the place where Abraham was going to offer Isaac. And Abraham said to his son, after Isaac was spared, he said, God will provide himself a lamb.
Yeah.
And there was a lamb caught in the thicket. So it was both literal and prophetic. God, at the very same place, the very same location, God would provide himself a lamb. And so this is what took place there. But not only a lamb, God would provide himself a lamb, he would also provide a surety. He would also become the surety of, it says here, a better covenant or a better testament. So whereas they were going in and sprinkling blood on the mercy seat, that was symbolic, animal blood, symbolic of covering or atoning for the brokenness of the law. Now, God's own blood, God's two witnesses, the law from his own hand, the blood from his own side. These are God's two witnesses that accomplish the atonement. And so the ark, theologically, biblically, had to be right below Calvary.
That is amazing. I have never quite seen it put together that way. Um, that's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant.
Jesus is just fulfilling all the protocols. He's
Yeah.
the offering, he's the priest, he's making the application. At the very listen, the reason why when Christ went to Gethsemane, if his death was the only thing necessary, if the shedding of blood was the only thing necessary, when he goes to Calvary, what does he tell his disciples? I'm exceedingly sorrowful unto death. He believed he actually is going to die right there because the weight of sin is crushing out his life. He senses his father turning away from him, veiling himself, which has never happened in all eternity past, which is something we can't even wrap our heads around either. But in Gethsemane there, he's even asking the Father. There kind of has to be another way because I don't know how this is supposed to work. I'm supposed to be the lamb. I'm supposed to be the priest. I'm supposed to collect the blood. I'm supposed to make the application. If I am the victim, if I am the offering, and there is no priest to actually minister the blood, how is this going to be? How's this going to work? I'm going to be trapped. I'm going to be enslaved forever in death because the transgression of the law cannot be satisfied. There can be no application. He goes to Calvary and he's so distraught at the thought of being separated from his Father for eternity. The capillaries in his skin begin to burst. He's under such stress. It's called hematidrosis. And he's got hyperhidrosis. He's sweating profusely, I'm sure. And that was something that happened, of course, at the crucifixion too. But I believe what's going to happen there in Gethsemane is he's under such stress and anguish, his heart is going to burst. Well, God prevents that from happening. Luke 22, verse 43, God sends an angel to strengthen him there. He prevents him from dying, right? He is going to die right there. And God prevents that.
Now,
Not right time,
I will
not
put
right
out a
place.
disclaimer for everyone watching. This is the one point that I do disagree with you on, but that's okay. That's okay. But I did want to put that out there that out of everything discussed, I'm not on board with it, but I can see why you're going there. I can definitely understand your thought process. Now, I do want to say I did not cut him off here to embarrass him or to try to insult him in any way. When we were discussing this the day before we recorded it, I probably should have told him then that I disagreed with that, but I didn't. I just wanted to hear what he had to say. But I do want to make it known here that this is not something that I believe. He believes that Jesus was unaware that he was going to die on the cross. He thought he was going to die right there. We can disagree on that, that's fine, but the message that he is saying is still very much relevant. And how he gets to why the Ark of the Covenant is exactly where Ron Wyatt's discovery and says that it is still very much at play here. So,
It's not the right time. It's not the right place. The Paschal Lamb is sacrificed at 3 p.m. and he's not over the place where the application can be accomplished.
mm-hmm.
So, and he hasn't gone to Calvary yet. So he needs the
Correct.
final anointing with the blood on the head and the hands and the feet. So things haven't quite fallen into place, although he is feeling the weight of sin crushing out his life.
Mm.
And so that's why God says, okay, it can't happen here. You have to go to Calvary.
My thought process on this is, and this is why I'm not sure that I follow on this part. Wouldn't Jesus, as God, know that?
In his humanness, I don't think he could see through the portals of the tomb. I think that he was responding like anybody from a human standpoint.
Mm.
Now, obviously, the Son of God, his divine nature, would know all of this. But from a human standpoint, the only variation that Hebrews seems to suggest, right, in chapter 1 in Hebrews, it basically says there in chapter 1 that Jesus, it says, God who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in times past unto the fathers by the prophets,
Mm-hmm.
hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom he had also made the worlds. And look at the next verse, verse 3, who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person. That word express image in the Greek is the word karakter. It's where we get our word character from. Jesus was the character of the Father in the flesh. Okay. And so,
Okay. Yeah.
and then you go into the second chapter of Hebrews. He talks about verse 17, wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. Well, right there it tells us he's going to be the high priest in Hebrews 2:17. So again, you start putting all of the pieces in the proper perspective, in the proper place. He's priest, he's lamb, and he's going to fulfill all. He's the way, truth, and life. He's going to deal with every aspect of the tabernacle. He is the fulfillment in reality of the tabernacle.
So
And
do you think that as a human, Jesus, I guess, was kind of cut off from certain knowledge or certain things then?
I think that he had incredible perception ability. Um, Remember, he would go out and he would pray all night
Mm-hmm.
to his Father. He would spend sometimes the whole night in prayer, and then he would come and he would minister. For example, it was if he went to the Father in prayer with the mindset of, here's a clean slate. You impress me, you instruct me where to go, who to talk to today. And I believe that God would provide all of that instruction. And so he goes over to a well to meet the Samaritan woman. he already knows that she has in this an issue. He already senses and understands what she's been dealing with. Oh well, you've had seven husbands, etc. I mean, he has this insight, this intuitive insight, but I think he has gotten that from the Father during his times of prayer, with the Father directing him and instructing him, much like how he would work through Ron. Ron would go to him in prayer. What is this about? Why should I go here? Give me some insight in understanding, right? Now we have the word that's revealed to us, which is God's will revealed to us. So we have kind of an advantage. But Jesus was, I think he had the Torah and the Psalms. I think he had all of that memorized in his mind from an early age on. He was just taught in the Word, and I think that he had this intuition, and he could read people, and maybe even the Father gave him instruction day by day. But I don't know if I know some people seem to suggest that he was like a clairvoyant. He could like read people's minds, and I think he could read their heart. I think he could read the expressions and read body
Well, it's
language.
just like the
And I,
verse that when we were talking about before, it's Matthew 9:4
right, right,
says, "And Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said,
knowing their thoughts.
Wherefore think ye evil in your hearts." Jerry, if you're watching this in the future, please understand, and also for my viewers, I'm not trying to be combative here. I'm not trying to, this isn't me trying to say, gotcha. I'm simply pointing out things as he's going along so I can try to understand it and make sure that we're both on the same wavelength. So when he says that, I want to show him this verse that says, well, he did know his thoughts. So he's running through his thought process. And that's what I'm trying to get him to do. Open up. Okay, well, this is what you believe. Why do you believe that way? So it's not an attack. I just want to make sure that that's understood.
Yeah. Well, when I think of what is it, John chapter 1, where he says, "I came unto my own, and my own received me not." I think that's in John. It might be John first chapter.
Let's
Actually,
see.
I think I have it on the slide here. Even
Even them not believe his name. Oh, I think it's verse 12. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believeth or believe on his name, which were
John
born.
1:11.
Oh, so it was the one before. He
Yeah, he
came
came
unto
unto his
his
own.
own, and his own received him not. Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, he sensed that they hated him for sure. And let's see, where did you get? Here you are.
Well, that was known. I mean, even Daniel prophesied that.
Right. So yeah. Um,
Let's see.
so I believe. Listen, when he went to the temple at 12,
Mhm.
I think he got a really good sense, even at 12 years of age, where the mindset of the priests and the
Oh, yeah.
rabbis were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, at the
uh,
time, they kind of wore it on their sleeves.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and even come later on, these high priests, Jesus denounced as an adult. It's like you preach, you go around and preach all this, but you don't even believe what you preach. You're all hypocrites. I'm just kind of paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he
Of
said. It was the
course,
same
of course.
general. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were moments when it was overwhelming to him, like in the temple, and he had to just turn over the
Hmm.
tables and so forth.
The justified anger.
And I think there was that time, and there were probably a couple of times in scripture where I mean, his divinity was veiled with humanity. But I think there were moments, instances where divinity kind of shone through just a bit. And like for example, when they came to arrest him in Gethsemane,
Hmm.
um, when at the moment when divinity kind of flashed through momentarily, what happened to the people? They were all blown back. They all fell down like dead men.
Where's it say that? Where's that one at?
Uh, that that's That's got to be at the end. What's at the end of? It's 18, verse 5 and 6.
18 verse 5 and
John
okay.
John 18, 5 and
And
6.
answered Jesus Nazareth, Jesus saith unto them, I am he. And Judas also, which betray him, stood with them. As soon as then as he had said unto them, I am he, they went backward and fell to the ground. Huh. Now
So,
that
so
is interesting.
yeah. So there were moments
It
when
sure does say that, doesn't it?
there were moments when he was making it so obvious that he was the Messiah, and yet, this is incredible, Brandon. That people get so fixed in their own, they get so locked in their own tradition and their own
Hmm.
understanding that God is trying to kind of loosen that and loosen them and free them up from that to consider another possibility. And yet, we deal with that all the time, actually, with
I'm
the
one of those
discoveries.
people that, yeah, I've got to see it. When somebody
Yeah,
says something about the Bible, well, show it to me. And you did. And
sure.
that's exactly what it says. You're right. So
The other thing that we didn't mention
uh-huh.
that I know I've talked to you a little bit before about in Revelation 15. Yeah.
Oh,
And
yes.
before we actually get there, I wanted to make sure I answered a couple of elementary questions. We
Hmm.
talked about the size of the ark.
Yes.
1 Kings 8 and 9 says that this is when Solomon was bringing it up to the temple, and they brought it up to the temple. They said the only thing that was inside were the tables of stone.
Mm. Okay.
Um, and the reason why there's a bit of controversy over what could have been included in there is because in Exodus 16:33 and Numbers 17:10, they talk about the pot of manna and they talk
Hmm.
about Aaron's rod that budded, that they were in front of the testimony or before the uh, the ark.
Could it be that it just rotted away after all this time?
Well, you got to remember, God performed a miracle. This is, of course, the story is in Exodus 16. God performed a miracle every week while they were traveling uh, over there toward Mount Sinai. This is before they get to Mount Sinai.
Hmm. Yep.
He's performing a miracle in that the manna would only last each day. They would go out each
Right.
day.
Right.
Okay. But on the sixth day, he would rain down twice as much, and
Right.
it would
Yep.
keep over the Sabbath day. And of course, he got upset with people that would go out on the Sabbath day. He said, "How long they refuse you to keep my law?" Well, they haven't even come to Sinai yet, which is an indication that the law has always existed. People just ignored it. And so, um, it's a great object lesson to understand that God's law has never gone away. It's always will be.
Hmm.
But but anyway, those particular references aren't definitive. And when Paul in Hebrews 9:4, he basically is talking about in the most holy place, you have the golden censer, you have the Ark of the Covenant, and then he seems to indicate that inside the Ark would be the pot of manna and Aaron's rod.
Hmm.
But actually, the Old Testament doesn't really say it quite that way.
Yeah, which
I'll
had the
read.
golden. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in Hebrews 9:4, he's talking about the temple.
Hmm.
He says, after the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer, the Ark of the Covenant overlaid round about with gold,
Hmm.
wherein was as a supplied word, wherein the golden pot that had manna and Aaron's rod that budded. Now, did he mean wherein the holy place or wherein the ark itself?
I
So yeah, I
don't
guess you
know.
could probably even take that both ways.
Yeah, you could. And the cherubims, I just realized this, the cherubims that are on the ark is exactly what Satan was. Satan was a cherubim.
Correct. He was a right. Absolutely.
Interesting that it's the cherubims that are on the side of it.
Yep, the covering chair, but showing absolute respect and reverence for grace and law.
Hmm.
Of course, actually, what grace is a combination of all the things that we've been sharing. It's a it's a cumulative. aspect of mercy and judgment and perseverance and deliverance, relationship, sacrifice, and victory. It's a combination. That's what grace is. It's a combination of all of those factors that are playing out for humanity's
I've
benefit.
always looked at it as grace as being something that we get that we don't deserve, and mercy
Yep,
is not getting something that we deserve.
that we deserve.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also in Second Chronicles 36:18 is where you have Nebuchadnezzar taking a bunch of stuff back as the spoils of war after they destroyed Jerusalem in 587-6 BC. And there's a big long list there of stuff, but the sanctuary furniture, the Ark of the Covenant, the table of showbread, the menorah, the altar of incense, none of that is included on that list. And
What
also
chapter is that in?
that's Second Chronicles 36.
36. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, verse 18.
Okay, all the vessels of the house of God, great and small, and the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king and of his princes, and all these he brought to Babylon. Yeah, it's kind of vague there, isn't it?
Yeah, if you actually Google that, you'll find that they go through a list of the laver, the brass lavers and stuff that were there. There was actually several of them, one large one and a couple of smaller ones. And then all of the implements, the shovels, the forks, the incense
So that must have
holders.
been what Ron found that was all over the place because he said he found boards all over the place. He found like leather coverings. That must be
The
what he found,
tabernacle.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, the wilderness tabernacle.
So all that
So,
stuff was just all a part of that.
right.
That's what it seems like anyway.
Also in just mention another thing here in
Hmm.
I probably won't be able to see these, but yeah, there's an oil lamp there. Is one of the
Yep, I
things
see
he
it.
recovered. That's the stone plug. He's got that. And there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
first century coin. These are things that were found while he was excavating
Mm.
down the cliff face there. Found all of those there. And also in Deuteronomy 31:26, you had the you had the law of Moses that was actually put on the side. It
Mm.
was
Hmm.
a leather. I think Ron said it's still there, and it's in pristine condition. I mean, that would have been put there about 3,600 years
Yeah,
ago.
that's a long time.
Yeah, and he said it's the book of the law. So
If God can
Torah.
can preserve that, he can
Oh,
preserve manna too.
absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's just some again circumstantial things that
Yeah.
connected with the Ark of the Covenant there. In Revelation 15 is where this becomes an end time revelation. Um, Paul really didn't need to express a lot of this information in his day because it wasn't an end time event. But when you go into Revelation 14 and 15, you're talking now about the 144,000 or the remnant. And in chapter 15, when you look at the first three verses there, verse 3, when you get down to verse 3, um, it says there that they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, "Great and marvelous are thy works." And again, these are the two things that God Himself contributed that were necessary for the plan of salvation to be effective. And it was the law that He wrote with His own hand, the blood from His own side. And once they came together in covenant marriage and reality, we were bought and paid for, as Ron indicated, which is an indication that the ark could only be one location and that
Yeah.
it had a divine purpose. It had a God purpose in Him calling it into service again.
And is it true that if anybody touches it, will they die?
I think unless God, and I'm just, I'm not 100% certain that Ron did or didn't actually touch it. I know that the tablets were taken out and handed to him by the angel.
Hmm.
And we could possibly, if you wanted to, talk about some of his visits there in the chamber. The back wall is like a crystal, and it has a rainbow across the back wall.
I remember him mentioning
Comes
it.
around.
Now, is it a crystal that's embedded within the rock, or is it something that was placed there, or are we not sure?
Um, I don't know if it would have been a natural phenomena. I think it's probably a supernatural phenomena that's there. I think once anywhere that the Ark of the Covenant went, not only was it protected, but it it was the emblem, the banner of promise. It was the banner of promise, and of course the rainbow is was established to fulfill that promise. And so here's something that's the promise of, Jesus was slain from the foundation of the world.
Hmm.
In Revelation 13:8, that promise was, as soon as there was sin, he stood in the gap, and that's why Adam and Eve were not instantly destroyed, because they could have been if the promise hadn't been implemented right there when it was needed, and then it would play out in reality 4,000 years later, and actually right there at the mercy seat. The mercy seat is called the Kapporeth, which means place of atonement, and that's actually what happened there in reality. It was the place of atonement. And I think we probably, let's see, we didn't mention Romans chapter 3. This is where
Chapter
this is
3.
where Paul uses a word that we're not. When you say propitiation, people don't typically um, identify that. In Romans 3:25, there, verse 24, being justified freely by His grace through the redemption that's in Jesus Christ, or Christ Jesus, whom God hath set forth. In other words, this was part of the script. This was part of a moed. This was a divine appointment here. God set forth a propitiation
What does
through
that word
faith.
mean?
That's the word hilasterion in the Greek, and it means mercy seat. It's only used twice in the New Testament. Hebrews 9:5 is the other reference. And I think we were there just a little bit ago, Hebrews 9:5.
Yeah.
And Hebrews 9:5, this is the other time it's used. And over it, the cherubims of glory shadowing the mercy seat.
Yeah.
That's the word hilasterion. So it's basically, he's saying there that Christ, it was divinely appointed to be at the mercy seat, the propitiation, the the fulfillment of the atonement, the coming together of the human and the divine. It was declared, it was designed, it was written that it was going to be right there at the mercy seat.
So with all of that, the ark could have only been in one place.
If there's a resurrection, then it can only be right there.
And
You
like
see
you
what's
said,
happening.
God would have had to brought it to him instead of bringing him to the ark.
Exactly. That's what happened. And all he had to do was turn the whole scene vertical from horizontal, and everything could play out. All he had to do was open the access, provide the time, and everything was playing out just the way it was
Mhm.
supposed to play. You see, what's amazing is that Jesus played the role, the human Jesus, his human offering, played the role that it was designed to play. You can't use an offering that's subject to death to cover something that never dies, the eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Can't use the finite to cover the eternal.
Right.
And you can't use the eternal to play the substitutionary role because it can't die.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So either way you go, you have to recognize that each nature is playing the role that it was designed to play. And it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful and so wonderful that God in his wisdom and in his mercy and in his grace, was willing to really put that together. And it's unfortunate, the Jews, they're carrying around the law of God for all that time, but when the blood shows up, they reject it. So they have
Mm-hmm.
half the equation, right? Unfortunately, today, the reverse is somewhat true. There are a lot
Yeah.
of Christians and denominations that they accept the blood, but then they push the law away.
Right.
So it's as if it's as if the pendulum has swung from one side to the other, not realizing that grace is the combination of both offerings. Atonement is necessary and accomplished by both offerings, not just one. So, and this is where John makes it pretty clear in chapter 5, 1 John chapter 5. He makes it pretty clear that we read earlier.
I
And and really the human offering is astounding, and necessary, totally necessary and astounding that Jesus was willing to go through all that. That is just
yeah. Yeah.
absolutely astounding as a human being. But John says that the divine offering is greater. And there's no question that to forfeit part of what makes you God for eternity is just it's unthinkable. It's when I began to put that together, I wanted to run back and say, "Oh, please, I hope that's not true. I
Mm,
hope that's not true. We're not worth that." But then the word really came to me immediately. Yes, you are. I mean, it was instantaneous. It was, oh, yes, you are. I want to redeem all of humanity. I'm not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to accept me as Lord and Savior. And you begin to realize that the individual that's alive has the opportunity for life eternal. And if they don't accept that and they miss out, they take the broad road,
mm,
God loses something for eternity that no one else can make up.
right.
So I mean, this is really quite the drama. The gospel message in this probationary time that we've been afforded is quite the dramatic scene in God universe. We're the lost sheep. We're the one that strayed. The 99 are in the sheepfold, but the shepherd went out looking for the lost sheep. That's us.
Yes.
And he went and he found them. And so he's provided an opportunity. And I just pray that people will take information like what we're sharing here today, and will take it to heart and come to him and know him as not only Savior but also Lord. So
Jerry, it was a great honor and a privilege to talk to you, and I am so glad that Michelle put us together.
is homechurch.us, which is a weekly Bible study, basically.
Hmm.
And we typically go through a book of the Bible. We're currently in the book of Isaiah. And we'll go ahead and start reading through a chapter. And we want to know what it says, what does it mean, and how do we apply it to our own lives today?
So you're doing in-depth Bible studies.
Right, from
Yes.
week to
Okay.
week. And sometimes I'm leading out, sometimes my sons are leading out.
Hmm.
And then other times we have, for example, the fellow that we had sent, Scott Parvey, we sent his information to you.
Mm, yep.
He has an incredible amount of information on Mount Sinai, having been there a number of times.
Yes, and for my viewers, I have talked to him already. Thank you very much for putting me in contact with him, and he has agreed to come on the show, so we're going to work that out, and we're going to do a video on that.
Sure.
Your website is
Anchorstone.com
okay.
is one of them, or arksecret.com. And to go to either one of those will link you over to the other. So if you can just go to one or the other, it will link you over.
Yep. And the QR
And
codes that you all are seeing on the screen right now, you can scan that code and it will take you directly to that website. And more
and
importantly, I do believe, as I'm sure you do, that this type of information, these discoveries, was supposed to be made and revealed to the world in the end times. And I believe that we're there. I
oh,
think
yeah.
that we're a lot closer than what many think.
Yes, absolutely. Um, Yeah, it seems like that the place is kind of coming unglued in
Hmm.
several different ways,
Yes.
and that's to kind of be expected because the enemy has to throw the world into turmoil
Hmm.
in order to make the gains that he wants to gain. But
And
like,
I'll have all links down in the descriptions for the viewers that want to seek you out and go to your YouTube channel, go to your website, and learn a little bit more about what you guys do. And I definitely encourage it. He has a full resource of newsletters, all from the 90s that go even further back. It's some very interesting stuff. Definitely give his book a look at. I've started reading it, and it is an extremely interesting read. There are parts in it that I never knew, never heard of, and it's just filled with a ton of information. So I appreciate you coming on the show, Jerry. Definitely appreciate Michelle putting me in touch with you, and we're going to do this again soon. So yeah.
sure.
All right, Jerry.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
Yes, sir. God bless.
You too, my friend. You
Keep
too.
pressing toward the mark, brother.
All right.
Yeah.